streaming now. Had to take down the previous stream and upload it as an edited video just because licenses kicked out at the end, and it had the issue of showing my computer details, and didn't really want those on the screen. Yeah, so had to very quickly panic and have a terrible time with that. But yeah, so I'm just posting the link to Facebook at the moment. Fixed. That's fixed. Part 3 of stream is happening now. There we go. There we go. I'm gonna message it to. Cool. Anyway, so back up to where we were. So we've got this is the render that came out. I just had to restart Maya. I did get a new license installed correctly. It's just need to restart Maya for it to actually show up. But yeah, so the groom that we've done so far, this is how that looks. It will be good to render the back of him as well, just to get a feel. Obviously, we're rendering right now with what's the word I'm looking for? Lambert material, which isn't really ideal, but yeah, it works. So that's kind of what we're looking at from the back. So it's got a general texture. I feel like the hair is too thick for both grooms. Some of that could be the lack of shading. Obviously, having a pure surface shader is going to cause a bit of chaos. It could also be an issue of density for the bottom half, but for now I'm going to err on the side of width. So let's just get Maya up, and I'm going to change that width down. Short hair. Where are you? Taper's pretty good. Let's take you to 0.5. So it's half the width. This would probably be too low now. Let's just kill the render just in case. One of the reasons I don't always like using IPR is because it takes a little while to clean up, but also you sometimes don't know if the geometry's updated correctly. It should do just fine, but we don't know for sure. Let me just test something. Make sure it's working. So my viewport isn't working now. Oh, there we go. Just took its time is all. There we go. Right. So let's try doing a render from the back. Yeah, apologies for having to take it down so quickly. Just yeah, panicked about having computer details on the internet, so I had to very quickly edit the video out. I think half the width is working quite well actually. Obviously, we'll see how it looks once we got more frames. Well, not more frames, more of the image finished. In terms of general setup, I'm currently using RenderMan, as you can maybe tell. Obviously, there's no shader attached, but that will make a big difference. But the computer's running a Ryzen 9 3950X. So I've got 16 cores, 32 threads. So RenderMan's fairly quick on this, as it should be. But yeah, so obviously if I was rendering now with a lower CPU, this would take a lot longer. So it's quite nice having that power sometimes. The issue is definitely the short hair. I feel like the texture of the top hair is actually working relatively well, even with the Lambert material attached. Short hair is just a bit of a mess. I'm erring on the side of it being a density issue, to be honest. So let's kill this render. And let's reduce, so that's perspective count, let's go to perspective 3. It doesn't look like it should be that bad. Actually, while we're here, let's check if the cut modifier is working. No, cut modifier is still broken. Something's really wrong with this short hair groom. Like, really wrong. Because that doesn't look too dense. It doesn't look good, but it doesn't look too dense like it's saying it is. Let's just try setting this to be 10 times less. That isn't 10 times less, is it? Alright, let's go half as much as it was. And let's try rendering that. Preview render. Yeah, just rendering. Something's really wrong with the short hair groom, and I haven't figured out what's going on yet.
Let me see.
The density and width don't seem to look correct, and I've still got that issue with the cutoff modifier.
Zoom in.
Well, it's not how it looks. I know how it looks. It's more it's not updating correctly between
Oh, it's weird.
these. Like something's wrong with it.
Yeah,
And I have no idea what is wrong. I'm also getting a lot of performance issues.
Have you tried completely restarting just in case it's something?
Should be fine.
You have nothing else running in the background?
No, well, I'm rendering. I mean, this works better, so this can work for now, I guess. I need to fix this area over here, though. This isn't ideal yet. These strays feel a little bit too repetitive. It'd be nice to get some strays that kind of flick in, like just the tip out. Maybe I can add a noise that's like a percentage of the strays, and it just affects the tip. That would do that for me. This really isn't working though, unless it's my clumps. Maybe my clump density is just way too high. Let's see what you're doing. I wish I knew why it was so slow. Oh wait, no, it is previewing at 100%. Huh. Okay. Let's just update this mask anyway. It's a bit of updating. Get the tools. I'm going to use a soft brush just to get a bit of variation in there. So it's black. I'm just going to like fade the edges a little bit just to get a little bit of a fall off. Not much. A density map, well, this is kind of a mask and a density map, but a density map should have quite a lot of texture to it, generally speaking. Yeah, you got things like scars that affect it. If the person's been scratching their head, that will affect it. Anything on the skin, basically where the hair is, will affect that density map a little bit. Let's check through. Got 2 people viewing at the moment. If anyone viewing at the moment has any questions, feel free to ask. Obviously, if you're watching this kind of after the fact as the upload, then just type a comment. I'm happy to respond to people. I thought that will do. I'm just going to save this texture. Save this. That'll give us a bit nicer fall off. This really isn't rendering right though, unless it is just a shader issue. I'm not ready to switch shader yet. Huh. Okay, we'll figure out at some point. Let's just look around the groom. Set these guides. Add a fair bit of taper. Just prefer how that looks. And I think we need to start pulling this area back.
I think we can.
Nice.
Maybe get primer for clay.
Clay primer. Oh, you got to keep that little
Oh,
guy
well, if I
sculpted
want
over.
to paint it, we'll have to.
Oh yeah, of course.
But I'm thinking, would nail polish do it?
I don't know. I don't sculpt in real clay often enough.
I'll maybe ask her.
Right, okay.
It looks like your hair. If your head is missing half of it.
Let's just do a buzz cut. Get it over. Right. I'm feeling lost right now.
Are people still watching?
There's a few people watching. Obviously, I lost quite a few of them when I, without warning, took the stream down and deleted the link and edited it and re-uploaded it. Looking good. Those Lambert-ish shaders. Yeah, like having a Lambert shader, I do find quite helpful sometimes, just because you're seeing the raw geo. Obviously, adding an actual shader will change this quite a lot. We'll get some transmission will be the main thing really that changes it. Because I guess one key thing to hair shading is a Lambert is a diffuse based material, but hair doesn't really have a diffuse component. Like maybe if there's dirt in it or there's some kind of dyes, then yeah, but strictly speaking, hair doesn't have a diffuse. It's a glass tube. In practice, it's a glass tube. Also, something I'm realizing is that the delay on this stream is actually huge. I'm looking at the stream on my right screen, and it looks like it's about 30 seconds behind, maybe even a minute behind. So this is going to be kind of tricky to monitor, to be honest. So if you do say anything in the chat and you're replying to something I said, if you can just like kind of give me clues as to what it is I said that you're replying to, and that will help quite a lot. But yeah, so let's have a playback with this. So we do need to change the density map on this guy. I'm going to separate the groom. So we've got this sculpted hair. This is ultimately what I'm going to match over time. It is going to take some time to get to that point. But these front clumps I really do need to be separate. And also these big strays. I could do that with a modifier, with a noise in the clumps. But I kind of want the control to actually get the shapes. I sculpted these the way they are for a reason. I quite liked having these two kind of peeking out, maybe not as strongly, but I like these shapes. And that'd be really hard to get over noise. So, yeah, kind of delayed. Yeah, oh yeah, there's a huge delay in this stream for some reason. The stream health is excellent though, apparently. And it's set to normal latency, so there shouldn't really be any real issue. But we'll figure out over time what's going on. So I guess it's time to split out these front clumps. I'm going to hide the groom. Oh, I also need to drag this over. Get rid of that. I have to do that every time. It's really annoying. Next gen. I want those actually. And then I'm going to select the hair template. Use the trick that Jesus showed me, which is object X-ray. So I don't have to assign a material for it. Although it's kind of weak looking right now because of the light. Is it Alt B? That helps. But yeah, so at the moment I'm trying to like kind of add these in to the main groom, but that's not going to be the right thing to do. So I will have to add a separate groom in just this area for these front clumps, just so I can get full control over it. But the delay is massive. So if anyone has any questions, let me know. Kind of like a little bit lost today, I think, like working. So I may struggle a little bit to answer some questions, but I'll try my best. And ultimately, I'm kind of doing this for a bit of fun, really. It's not meant to be a structured lesson, but if I can help people while I work, then may as well. I just know that some people are interested in seeing kind of how the working process is without editing, because obviously a lot of us like to edit videos to kind of show in the best light what we do. I'm not particularly too worried about showing in the best light. I just want to play about with shapes and see what happens. I need to pull this guy down. Get close to the match to the sculpt. And let's pull you in as well. So an issue I'm going to have here is I made the scalp a bit too small, so I can't actually reach the modelled shape at the front, so I do need to add some kind of widow's peak within the constraints I've already got, which is going to be a bit of a challenge, but we can see if we can find a way to make it work. For now though, I will need to add a guide right here. I'll need to do the same on the other side as well. Maybe I won't. We'll get back to that side. Let's do some work on this side. I could also just mirror my guides, but I think at this point it'd be good to start adding some asymmetry. Even if it's super subtle, like literally just individual guides doing the same flow but not identically. Is the guide taper affecting the actual hairs? No, it's just a preview of the guides. I quite like having a high taper on my guides just because visually it's less confusing to me. Like when I look at this, I can quite easily tell depth because there's no lighting information on guides. It's easier to see the depth if you can see root tip. So I can see that this is probably closer to me because the roots are behind it, and yeah, obviously I know that because I've built a groom, but it's quite a helpful way of keeping track of stuff. Although annoyingly, you have to set it each time you create guides, and you can't just set like a global number. You can, if according to Jesus, you can if you go into the API, but I'm not willing to dive into API just to change a width preset of guides. Something like that will do. And then this guide is going way too close. So let's bend him out of the tip. And this guide doesn't feel quite right. I think he needs to come out a bit further. Let's add a little bit of a wave to him as well. Super subtle, but it'd be interesting. You need to come further forward as well. Just to get a bit more influence. That feels better. Alright, so I'm going to delete these front guides. Front free, there it is. Select this guide as well. I'm going to set the taper on him. Xgen, no, not Xgen. Channel box, pointing taper, and 0.01. Oh, 0.01. There we go. And I need to change his shape. His shape is all levels of wrong. I also need to scale him. As I said yesterday, scaling your guides is quite important just because the interpolation I've found generally will lose length. Not every time, but most times it will lose just a tiny bit of length from like the ground truth, like what the hair really should do, because it doesn't interpolate shape. As far as I'm aware, it seems to interpolate like CV positions, which mathematically is great, but artistically is a bit of a nightmare because it means it doesn't preserve length. It doesn't curve correctly if you've got a change in direction. It just kind of blends linearly between the two, which seems a little bit weird, to be honest. It never looks right, that's for sure. Right. So, I'm going to change this guide now. That will do. And now we're going to have to change the mask, because that mask is going to be all levels of wrong. Let's have the render geo. Go into Xgen. Just going to save my scene. Oh, there we go. Right. Update the mask. So I'm going to use black because I don't want any hairs to generate. Oh, need to do black at full opacity. And let's just do something like that. So I'm just drawing lines between the guides, really. The guides should be at the edge of your mask. Obviously there's a bit of room for error. Also, we need to extend this hairline down because it's actually not matching the hairs below it. On this side it is, but on this side it is not. I'll do that in the short hair groom though, because that one's much easier to artificially extend. This side, however, is a bit more difficult, so... that will do. And check down here, that's fine anyway. Cool. Save textures. Save textures on this guy. Pt.3 groom. Great. So that's like the general shape now. So we're kind of cutting out these front guys. We'll need to add a separate groom for this. I'm going to just call it like fur hair front clumps or something. If you're wondering why I add fur at the start of the name, it's just force of habit. I do it quite a lot in work. So like I just do it in action, but there's no technical reason to have to do that. I could just put hair. That's not the most descriptive though. Generally speaking, you should put like head or the hairstyle or something like that, because for hair doesn't tell the user much. If someone else picks up your groom, they might not know what you mean by fur hair. They might, because you got hairs everywhere, I guess. Let's get the render geo visible again. I'm gonna go change this back. There we go. So let's add a new groom. XGen. So descriptions, create description. Oh, of course. Descriptions, create description. Cool. So I'm gonna call this fur hair front clumps. Although strictly speaking, let me just check something. Okay, I did it as one name, just to keep things consistent. Fur hair front clumps 01 because it's my first pass, and then description. Cool, that will work. And then placing shipping guides.
I feel like the kid that walks in the politician dad, but you have the camera on, he's like, howdy.
Oh, the mum just like rushes in on the background. The most terrified look on someone's face. Like, he's on Sky News, what do I do?
Oops, they did it. Like, what have we done?
What have we done? Oh, it's got the bathrobe in it, so it's a bit more full now. Right, so let's start by creating guides.
I gotta put the bed down, okay?
Yeah, go for it. Oh, don't want that.
It feels like we're in some sort of horror movie.
Watch how loud it squeaks.
No, it's like a trapdoor.
Squeak.
Kitchen squeak.
Cool. Thank you. Okay. So since these front clumps are such a kind of, they're their own shape, there's nothing else, I don't need to worry about too much if they're the correct length for this, because I want to match a shape primarily. I'm going to go in with the sculpt guides tool, but then I'm going to turn off lock length, and I'm just going to move the points pretty much exactly where I want them. We can normalize it after the fact to get like a smooth shape, but I like to work with lock length for like full procedural grooms, but I don't like to work with lock length for like an actual like precise match. I find it's more prohibitive than it is helpful. So just match the shape. I will need more guides as well, more density of CVs on the guides as well. It looks like the stream's catching up, it's not as far behind, which is weird. But yeah, so let's go in and add, let's go into XGen. And with that guide selected, let's just go to, where is he? Where is it? Ah, there it is, rebuild. And I'm going to set that to 7. I'm going to normalize it as well. There we go. So now, because the length isn't locked, I have like perfect control. Like I can move one CV without affecting the rest of the curve, which is endlessly helpful because I can just focus on getting the shape. I don't have to worry about how everything's interacting or anything like that. Let's pull that back a little bit. Have it curl forward. Although that doesn't make much sense. It should lean forward, I think. It should really do something more like that. Yeah, that looks more appealing. I'll go with that. And I'm just going to move it until it's in like the middle of that shape, or vaguely near the middle. That'll do. And I'm going to copy that guide, and I'm going to paste a new guide. We don't want to reach this hairline, or we don't want to go past this hairline, because having hairs cross over each other will be very weird. So I'm going to place a guide. Let's say, because we only need multiple guides per clump, and I can't get all the way forward, so let's go with U. I'm going to paste the shape, and then let's fix the 0.8, 0.01, and let's just get this looking where I want it to do as well. There is a utility to do this, but I don't know if my utilities are still broken. Yeah, my utilities are broken. Strictly speaking, I should be able to select this guide and this one and target them to each other, but for some reason all my utilities are missing, which is very frustrating because I like to use that quite a lot. So I'm going to have to do quite a lot. In fact, I just realised I'm going to have to do something. Because I can't go the whole way forward because my scalp is too small, I'm going to have to pull this forward to match the sculpt shape. So I'm going to have to do that. And because that's at the edge, we're not going to get hairs in front, which means we need to pull this all the way to the front. There we go. Pull this down. Got a grand total of 4 viewers at the moment. If any of you have any questions, just let me know. And then I'm going to add one more guide. Right. Where's the hairline? Hairline is there, so let's go with there. Paste guide shape. Fix a taper, 0.8. It'd be really great if XGen could remember the size that you put, but I don't know if Autodesk is still working on XGen. I've not seen any proper updates in a while, so I guess not. But it's a shame, because XGen's really cool. Get a nice shape there. How can I make you work? Could be interesting if we get like a little twist. That'd be a lot easier if these were NURBS curves, but I can't use NURBS curves, so that's a bit of an issue. Maybe this guide should be further back, so I'm gonna copy that guide, place one just behind it, paste the shape to it, and then I'll delete him. Okay, and pull him forward, pull him forward. So obviously, as I'm pulling this around, the length is kind of constantly changing because I've not got lock length turned on. So I am going to have to do like kind of a pass of, maybe matching up the lengths if I need to. For now, I'm not too worried about that because the shape is more important. But in simulation, this could look quite funky. So I'm going to get one more guide, put him here, and then that's this front clump done. Hopefully, interpolation should do a decent job on this guy. So let's go there. And I have no idea how good of a job interpolation did because it's huge. 0.8. Guide is too far out, let's pull him in. That moderately works. It'd be nice to have a bit of a slope going. That will do. So now I need to make this clump using kind of this remaining area here. There's a fair bit of space I've got. I really wish I had the target guides feature right now. That would make this a lot easier. Yeah, I'm going to move that guy back. So let's copy your shape again. Keep moving the same guide. Paste that. Paste. 0.01. 1.8. And then all I'm going to do, because I just wanted to move that guide back but keep the overall shape, I'm just going to move the actual hair to match past a certain point. So even though it's further back, I want it to maintain the same shape once it gets up here. So it's just a case of kind of pulling it forward pretty quickly. Something like that. That feels kind of flowy. And then if I add a guide in the middle of all those, that should give me a pretty nice result. It maybe didn't. That's fine. We can fix it. This might be a few too many guides for the shape. Frankly, I don't care that much. I'm going to play about with them. I might tweak the shape because having more guides like this allows you to control the profile. Because these clumps out here want to be more art directed, and I don't want to create like a separate clump setup for each one. I'd much rather just have the guides. It will look funky though, because there'll be a point at which I'm guide clumping, and so you'll get like loads of splits within this. So it's almost like I'm placing the sub clumps rather than the clumps themselves, which is going to be kind of weird to work with, but we'll see how it turns out. And this guide up here would be nice to have a little bit more. There we go. So if I go into XGen, preview the hair. So I don't have a mask set up yet, so let's get that sorted. So fur, hair, front, clumps, 1, mask. Let's start that with black, with a map density of, let's say, 40. Map resolution. In fact, actually, let's go 60. It's quite a small groom. And we need to, not you, not you. Okay. So I'm just going to paint up to the line of the actual hair, just because I don't want that. It can be a tiny amount of overlap, like literally a couple hairs overlap, but really I want this to be a pretty close matchup between the two. And then at the front, I want to have a little bit of a pull back there. Maybe that's a bit weird though. No commands to undo. Perfect. I'll just paint it back out in a second, on the second pass. You'll very rarely get a map done on the first pass, to be honest. Some maps you might get right first time, but most I've found take a couple passes just to get the exact lines that you want. So let's just get that. Looks a bit weird, but we'll fix it in the upcoming passes. So I think the problem we've got is at the moment we don't know how this groom's going to look, and I'm kind of breaking one of my little rules, which is not having this at the front, but like you don't want the mask to hit the edge of your scalp, but I'm kind of without a choice at the moment because I made the mistake of having the scalp too short. If this was actual production right now, I'd definitely go in and remake the mask, because ultimately if this was production, I'd be spending a lot longer on this groom, like a lot longer. Whereas this at the moment, I'm kind of doing it just because I haven't groomed in a while, and I'm live streaming it, so I'm taking it pretty casually, to be honest. But in production, you definitely want to kind of go in and create a new scalp, just so you've got all the real estate you need. Generally speaking, you want the scalps to be way bigger than you need, so you can just pull a mask, because you can always, with a mask, pull the hair back from the scalp, but you can't really just pull the scalp forward without messing up your guides. And technically you can, but it's not really recommended to do that. You don't want to be messing with any geometry, renaming stuff or regrouping stuff once you've already put it in its place. I feel like this side's going out much further than this side. So let's go in with black. And let's pull you back as well. Cool, that'll do. So save texture, next gen, save you. Cool, and then I'm going to need to assign the material. So Windows, browser. Let's get front clumps. Assign my hair tube shader, which is this guy. And then let's mess with density width. So for hair, I'm using 0.0005. This model is quite small. It's not modeled to scale. Anyone who's seen the other parts of the stream will probably know that I'm repeating this over and over, but I don't know when people are joining. Like I know I've got 4 viewers at the moment, but I don't know how many of you have been here for a while. By the way, if you guys have any questions or want to say hello, just type something in the chat. There we go. And let's add some taper. Start quite late. There we go. Then we're going to want to pump this density a lot higher. I think 60,000 was the density of my other groom. That feels about right. I'm going to need a lot more guides for obviously everything else, but let's just for a second focus on getting some basic quality there. Some modifiers. I'm going to add guide clumping because I'm curious as to how it looks, because this might decide if I want to change my general setup that I'm using. Guide save. No, we can work with that. So these are the gaps that I was talking about. If I just go into my channel box and hide the skull, this is what I was talking about, where you'll get like kind of parting within it. So it is good to kind of add some noise to these, really play about with the shape. But we've got control over it, which is what we wanted. It allows us separation as well. Obviously that separation is too much. We will want to blend these into each other just a little bit, and obviously I've got another clump that I need to add. But there's quite a few things we need to track really. I also need to get the parting map lined up to make sure it's working correctly. But yeah, so let's go in and hide that groom. Look at you. Show the guides. I'm going to mirror this, see if it works. and I'd really like this to line up with a sculpt. Close enough. Yeah, that's pretty good actually. Cool. The model is perfectly symmetrical, which is pretty bad. I think once I've finished getting the general setup of the groom, I'm going to come in and actually change these shapes a bit. Obviously I've got these stray clumps which I'm going to need to place. I'm going to do those by hand, I think. Not the best method, but definitely the easiest to control. And I guess for the sake of these streams, for the sake of people who are new to grooming, it's good to show you a few different methods of getting different effects. So I'm going to kind of continue to play with that. But yeah, so let's get, is it possible to change? Oh, we have to do region maps. Never mind. Let's just set up maps. Guide. Yeah, it's kind of doing what I expect. Maybe not dense enough. We might have to kind of artificially increase the density for these front clumps, just because the amount of region that these guys have probably isn't correct. When you sculpt something, obviously you're not worried about volume. Well, you're not worried about like the volume at like the root. You're more worried about the overall shape. But you know, in ZBrush, there's nothing stopping me making, you know, this giant clump that comes from a tiny point and just like kind of, you know, inflates as it goes along. But in Groom, that won't really work because the density of the hairs themselves, as the groom gets, as the clump gets bigger, is going to reduce. Like you'll be able to see through it, and then if they all go to a single point, it'll get super dense and light won't get through because it's like 100 hairs in the exact same spot. So it will require a bit of work with the density map just to kind of fake it. Again, like if this was VFX, I'd have proper reference lined up. At the moment, I'm not really using any reference. I've got some pretty vague stuff on my right monitor, but nothing too accurate, at least to what we're doing. I'm mainly just going off kind of what I know, which is never the correct way to groom, to be honest. But as I said, I'm not too precious about this one. It's just getting back into the habit of grooming for me, and also just sharing information, which is always fun. But yeah, so I'm going to add, just because it won't take too long, I'm going to add the region map. So let's just create a map. Then I'm going to call this fur hair front clumps 01 region map. Start with red, create. And then important thing with region maps is every color that you can put into this is registered as a unique region. So what I mean by that is if you have any if you have any softness at all, every single like bit of the gradient will register as a different region, so your parting won't work. As such, you have to use come on, let me resize the brush. Right. But yeah, so every single region will be considered a separate, every single tone, sorry, will be considered a separate groom completely, in a way. So you want to make sure that you're using a solid brush and ideally picking the preset colors, because you shouldn't really need more than 6 regions. If you do, something somewhere along the line has gone kind of wrong. Or you've got an incredibly complex groom, in which case I'd more recommend separating, actually separating the groom into multiple grooms, because that will be a lot better for you, really, a lot easier to control. So I'm just gonna, I don't need the region map down here, but just for OCD purposes, I like to kind of continue it back way further than I need. Because it's only the front, I'm not going to go the whole way back, because I'm not that OCD. But let's save those textures, and then because there isn't going to be a blend to like the back of the head, I can just set region mask to 1. I don't have to paint a map to blend that. Path doesn't exist. Oh, because I didn't save. There we go. And then I need to regenerate the clumps, which I've broken. No, there we go. Set maps. Cool. So there we go. Prashant. Like any specific reason you kept the front clump separate from main groom? I did have it rolled into one groom. but because this is quite a stylized character, I'm not going to get the separation that I want. I could go in and really force it with loads of guides, but for the sake of it being a stylized groom and frankly just kind of something to piss about with, it's a lot easier for me to go in and just separate it out. I can use guide clumping, which I'm not using on the rest of the hair. I'm not using guide clumping at all for the rest of the groom. So I'd really rather not add an entire clump modifier just for guides at the front. Obviously I could, there's nothing stopping that, but it's not really what I want to do. So I've started more guides. Let's go to you. And then also there's a because you're obviously new to the stream, what was I going to say? There's a pretty massive delay between the stream and me seeing stuff and you hearing my reply. So it might take me up to about a minute to reply, just because it's horrifically slow. Also, I hope you're doing well. It's been a while since I saw you. It's been over a year since I was in Bangalore now, actually. So I hope you and your family are doing well. The world's pretty mad at the moment. So let's pull you. Yeah, like you can see, like the way these clumps are sculpted, kind of wouldn't really happen that way for most people, unless your hair. My hair likes to layer like this, but most people's hair don't cross over like this. So doing that with purely guide clumping in this main groom would require way too many guides. I'm just not interested in doing that level of guide work. But yeah, this guy needs to come a lot lower or higher. I think he needs to go higher actually, which means he shouldn't really reach that end. Right, let's add the guide there. Paste guide shape. I didn't have the guide. Weird. Copy. Come on. Paste guide. So you need to be at the top, but way further back. So we're going to have quite a lot of issues with density map in this area, I can tell already. We are going to have to really hack it and do some pretty disgusting stuff to get this to work. And that's fine. Again, like, grooms, like, especially in industry, like, sometimes you just need to make something work. It doesn't matter if that's how it is. Like, you see grooms online where people do hair buns, and where the hair's being pulled into a knot at the back, and I personally don't like doing it, but what a lot of people do is like a thin layer of a groom that is way too dense, and that kind of makes it look like the whole head has hair. And although I personally really don't like doing that, it works, and sometimes that's what you need to do, especially like if deadlines are tight, or if you just don't want to have to battle with guides for about 10 days just to get that one shape. Let's get another guide there, paste the shape. Not 0.01. I'm not going to bother with taper, I'm just going to get these guides in place. Something I could do as well, rather than placing all these guides, I could create a tube. If any of you know about my website, it's MikeCauchiArt.com. I did a groom tutorial back when I first started groom, called Beginner's Guide to Hair Grooming, or Beginner's Guide to Grooming. It was like an hair tutorial, because it was back when XGen was still kind of, it was there, but it wasn't really, it wasn't particularly stable at the time. Like, there was a lot of issues with it. It didn't look great either, because it was Maya 2014 that I was still running at the time. I think it was updated from that, but yeah, it wasn't perfect. What was I saying? But that goes through the tube grooming method, which is still available to people. And that's a pretty good method for doing this sort of hair. You can literally just create a tube and it will create guides all around it and then through the middle. Oh, Rima. Also plug in the same region map you painted for the front cover. Yeah, it is. I could connect that just fine. Decided not to, just because I couldn't be bothered. Like in the case of just throwing together something, it's fine. But strictly speaking, I could go into for hair. So I could get this, but then rather than at the start, I could get this one, but rather than at the start saying dollar description, I could put dollar collection, the name of this description, and then region, and that will point this groom to that region map. I could also go into the file thing that I mentioned earlier on the previous part of the stream, load the image in from the other groom and make a copy of it, but yeah, I just decided rather than go through all that hassle, I'm just painting two sides. It doesn't have to be terribly precise, it's only this tiny area, so I just thought it'd be quicker to paint it, which sometimes it is. Not 0.8, there we go. So, is this doing what I want? I'm not sure. Really not happy with how this region's gonna turn out, I think. It's gonna be super weird. Might have to kind of force hair back through this, kind of generating hair in the same spot twice, but I can get away with it, then that'd be great. That's a lot longer than I expected it to be. Yeah, no problem. Are you guys doing okay in Bangalore? Obviously, everything's pretty mad at the moment. And let's add a guide in the middle, just for housekeeping. 0.8. 0.01, and then clean him up a bit. That'll do. Alright, just gonna grab this, mirror them. Cool. Things are pretty okay in Bangalore. Ah, that's good to hear, man. Glad you do it. Yeah, I'm glad you guys are doing well. Also, if anyone wonders why I keep pressing generate and then guide, I'm not doing that intentionally. I'm just kind of by habit clicking generate and then realizing I need to press guide. But you don't need to do that and then go back. It's pointless, to be honest. There we go. Right, so let's hide the sculpt. So now we're going to need to get some guides in this middle area. Why is it interpolating like that? Okay. Next gen. What am I doing? Oh, no, don't need action. 1.8 taper. 1.01. Sculpt change place, then we can mirror him over. that guy over. Let's generate new clump maps. Why? Is it not listening to my region map? Is that the issue? Ooh. Not possible any of those on red pixels, right? There we go. That's super weird. Wonder why that was breaking. Grooming. There we go. That's that fixed. So, as I said earlier, we might have to kind of artificially crank the density just to get the look we want, and then fade in the density a little bit at the front. Let's just see what we can do with this. So, generator. So that's at 8. So this is now denser than the head hair groom, which isn't really ideal. Let's get some more of these as well. I'm going to go with 18. Now let's get me smoother results. Get some notifications on Facebook. And pretty soon we'll do a quick test render, see if this is working. I'm going to loosen this up a little bit. And then add some sub-clumping. So sub-clumping down from guides is kind of tricky to do sometimes. Just because like you don't have a density of guides, which can really complicate things a little bit. So I'm going to generate this. It's way too low. Let's go to 100. That's still way too low. I'm going to guess it's something around 1,000. No, that's still too low. So basically, the issue we're getting is like you want each layer of clumping that you add to be 3 or 4 times denser, but we don't have a density value of the guides. So we really have to eyeball this. But what you want to find is roughly, like you want to find 3 or 4 clump guides between each of the actual hair guides. So I'm going to set this to 5,000. Generate that. So this might be okay. I'm going to go a little bit higher just to be safe, just so we don't get any flickering. Something like that looks like it should work fine. And that will then get me some sub-clumping. And now that sub-clumping I can start adding noise to, and it'll feel a bit more natural. You can add noise to guide clumps, although I really don't recommend it too much. Also, this at the front is going to feel super weird. I need to add quite a lot of volume to make this feel right. So I think I am going to have to add, like, going further back to pull some hairs out. But it's vaguely doing what we want. Let's see if I can add a cutoff to this guy. Is this going to break as well? I don't know. Oh, it looks like it's working. Okay, so this one's working. For those who weren't there early in my stream, I had a beautiful issue, which is this short hair groom at the back. Let's see if it's still doing it. The cutoff is breaking the groom completely. It just deletes a percentage of the hairs. I don't know why it's doing it. I've frankly never seen that before. So I'm going to have to probably ask around, see if anyone knows, because I really have no idea where to even start to look on that. Oh, I don't need this. So let's add a bit of noise. Let's set that to 0.2. to... Oh, yeah. Forget about that every time. And then set the frequency to like 4 maybe? And set correlation a lot higher. So correlation is in percentage, for anyone who doesn't know. Having this at a higher number, oh, correlation should not be 600. So basically it says, you know, how much their noise is all pushing in the same direction, or how much does the noise correlate between hairs. So if I set this to 0, it will probably still be quite chaotic, but it'll be more chaotic than if I set it to 100. 100 is very rarely going to be what you want, but I guess in this case, with it being a stylized groom, that actually works pretty well for me. And let's try that. Nah, I don't like that. Cool. And then I'm going to add some strays. I start around 10-15% on strays. I just find it's a number that works quite well for me. And so I will add some noise. This will be a generic noise that every hair gets, so 0.01 maybe. My scene scale is all kinds of screwed, so this is going to have to be a much higher value than it normally should be. Or a much lower value, sorry, than it normally should be. So yeah, that's too high. 1.5. That works quite well for me. So let's add around 0.01 to 0.02, which averages back out to 0.015, which is what I just had. So this will now have more variation, but generally feel the same, which kind of very subtly will make it feel more realistic. And let me just get... Sorry, I just need to get a link. Right. I accidentally just went onto my... I accidentally just closed my stream. So I have no idea. I know you guys can still see it because I'm able to watch the stream. But I have no idea how I can actually end the stream now. So this just became a never-ending stream. Visual Studio, maybe? This is going to be a fun one. Go live. There we go, got it. Panicked, and I was like, I don't know if I can restart this. I'm very, very new to streaming. I have frankly no idea how any of this works. I also keep saying frankly today. String. It's obviously too strong, but kind of looks cool. Let's see how this looks. Save the scene. Also going to save an iteration while I'm at it. Then let's make a preview render from my perspective cam. Renderman, preview render. This is going to have a Lambert material assigned to it, which won't be ideal, obviously, but we'll see what we get out of it. See how it looks. Something we should have as well is a small amount of randomization to the width of the hair. That's easy enough to do. We just need to put a rand in the. I should be able to just put a rand in the. What's the name? A rand in the width attribute. Oh, it's missing my. Thought it looked like something was missing. Should light. I thought that was looking a bit extreme in the eyes. There we go, that's a bit better. Actually got some fill light in the eyes now and some nice reflections. Thanks, man. Okay, if this puts in perspective how far the delay is, so I just now received your message about the looking pretty good. So there's a pretty massive delay. So if it seems like you say something and I don't react in any way, please don't think I'm being rude. It's just the delay is really large. Yeah, I feel like, to me, the hair feels too messy. Like I've gone way too far on clump mess and kind of actual strays in the hair. I also need to fill in kind of on my. To me, this negative space here is just way too much, like way too much. So I need to fill that out a bit. Let's start with the easiest one, which is reducing the number of strays on the main groom. So it's easier to see some of this stuff in renders. So I'm going to just go into here, set the stray percentage, just reduce that to, let's say, 5. So nice and low. It's a 20-second delay. Alright, cool. That's not that bad then, I guess. It felt a lot longer. Right, let's try re-rendering that. I feel like the hair needs to be longer as well. At least for this camera angle, it feels too short. Feels more like a helmet than actual hair. While this is rendering, I'm going to check the eyes. None of these meshes are named. I know. Don't hate. It is just like a quick kind of play about project. Don't intend on it going through a pipeline. If you're new to CG and you're watching this, don't do that. Name everything as you go. Keep things clear. Name your groups. Name everything. Separate things if you need to. Just don't don't leave things unnamed. It's horrible. If anyone else has to see your work, you can't do that to them, especially if they're a friend. Getting a lot of messages right now. So, that isn't right, is it? Let's go to roughness. No, sorry, IOR. That's refraction. Oh, that is. Weird. Okay. 1.12. Let's increase the roughness just slightly. Now I need to remember how you draw a region. I guess it's not that important. Right, so just to see how it works from different angles, let's render here as well. I feel like the pupil is set in a bit too far. It's also really sharp. I need to add some kind of displacement to break this up and make it feel organic, but you can actually see the gap between the meshes, so I need to clean that up a little bit. Currently I've got it set up so that the pupil is its own mesh. Not the pupil, sorry, the iris. Everything I just said but iris. Iris is its own mesh, and then the cornea and sclera are one mesh as well, but with like a transparency ramp. I like an ISO setup with a little bit of noise on it to break up the edges. It's not perfect. This, I feel like it's starting to work. The short hair isn't right yet, and I think it's too far forward as well. That's not helping much. But the biggest issue is this gap at the top. That needs to be filled in quite a lot. Right, it's kind of working. I also need to resculpt this little dragon because he's supposed to be chubby, but he feels deflated. He's also got like a second arm because he was sculpted in like maybe 5 minutes asymmetrically. Not the best way for me to work. I'm not like a full-time modeler. I'm not able to sculpt like that yet. Also, the ears feel a bit weird. I need to fix the thickness here and figure out these shapes because this doesn't feel right either. There should be like a little dip behind this to make it feel separate. The face itself is working now. Maybe round this out a bit because there's a little bit of a bump. It doesn't feel great. And obviously clothing, we can ignore that because that's clearly not even meant to be looked at. But yeah, okay, so I'm going to fix the mask for the side. I feel like this needs to be pulled back. This area needs filling in. And then let's render the back as a final view, just to see what's working and what's not. So yeah, fill in this area above the front clumps. So this short groom, I can't tell what's going on with it because the width and density are the same as this groom. There's arguably more noise in a way, but it feels way coarser. Like maybe it's just taper because my taper is lower, but it doesn't feel like this should just be taper. That really doesn't feel right to me. We can check, but that doesn't make sense in my head as to how that would be just taper that's doing that. So let's add a bit more taper. Let's go A5, and then render. The short groom is definitely the weak point at the moment, although it has had the least time spent on it other than the front clumps, but obviously they are really weak as well. And I think before I go much further, I'll probably start looking into how the eyebrows and peach fuzz should be done. I'm not going to be doing eyelashes for this guy because he doesn't have eyelids. So, like, he was modelled without. Yeah, that doesn't seem to work. I might have to remake this short groom because something is very wrong with it. I don't know if it's an issue on me or if it's an issue. Maybe something's not saving correctly. Maybe it's not updating. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend I know either. I just have no idea. This is where, like, if you want to get a job in groom, this is what the job is basically. Like it's not just grooming. I mean, it is, but it's not really just grooming, moving guides, adding modifiers. A lot of it is debugging because you get stuff that just breaks. Like, you know, there's that cut modifier that just isn't working. And then unless it's debugging of the look as well, this feels like quite shaggy, quite doggy. It's because the clumps are too tight. They feel like a solid surface rather than a clump of hair. So that's what's causing that. This feels too flat, so that needs more wavy variation. And you know, shading will help. Obviously, this is just a Lambert shader at the moment in RenderMan. But the other wing wasn't sculpted, so it looks a bit weak. Can you tell this is just a Dynamesh sphere to add the hood? But yeah, this guy's meant to be viewed from the front and the front only. But hell, we've turned this into a thing now. You can actually see his head in the reflection. But yeah, so what should I do next? Are there any requests, by the way? There's only 3 of you in the stream at the moment, and it dropped down to 0 viewers for 10 minutes apparently. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to go through stuff. I'm expecting really these live streams maybe over time will slowly get more viewers as people kind of pull towards them. But yeah, as kind of people pull towards them. But I expect them mainly to be viewed after the fact. But that means that anyone in the stream at the moment, if you want to ask questions, what you're thinking is probably what the viewers will think, and you can get a basically real-time answer. And yeah, the Ryzen 9 it's lovely. I love the 3950. It is great to have that power because I came from a laptop with quad-core, and the laptop would overheat with RenderMan. Granted, it was 6 years old when I finally got rid of it. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to focus on filling this gap because it's not good enough, to be honest. So let's go into front clumps. So this needs to be pulled way up, which isn't going to work directly. It's going to work very weirdly. But let's just do that. Pull. So this is now going above and beyond what the sculpt is doing. The sculpt doesn't do that at all. It is flat. Although I should probably just double check just in case I'm talking on my arse. Yeah, no, the sculpt is a lot flatter for that area, like this thing. Although it does pull forward a bit over here. Yeah, I need to just pull things forward a bit, I think. So I was talking on my arse. Perfect. But yeah, filling this gap is definitely the priority right now. Come on. So that means I'm going to need to grab this guy, pull him up as well, compensate, and let's update a group on this side. Have I reached that point where the groom doesn't update? Are you doing the eyebrows as well? Yeah, I'll be doing the eyebrows. Not yet, just because I I want to kind of get everything set up. I also want to export nicer textures. Currently, obviously, it's quite low res. I do want to go in. I do have textures exported actually for the for the scalp, or the eyebrow scalp, but I need to kind of go in and paint a higher res just so I've got the flow figured out, because the way I do eyebrows, controversially, relies on the texture below it or any projection that you're doing. So I need to find out why this isn't updating though, because it's doing nothing, unless it's this guy's really taking over. Let's just do that. Does it update? No, it's not updating. Something's broken. You're going to do Michael facial hair? Yeah, I'll probably do a little bit of peach fuzz. Nothing major. Just because I want him to feel super smooth. And a little bit of peach fuzz. Although obviously babies have it and children have it, I want kind of this like plasticky kind of reflection to be on him. I like the way it looks, especially on the nose. It has quite a nice look to me. Like this, I need to add some subsurface and some skin detailing to make it actually work, but I want to keep the general look that it already has. Maybe I'll add some like skin pore, like tileable maps, and keep them super subtle. Like I don't want people to really see them. I want it to be more something you feel rather than see. What am I doing? Oh yeah, I need to do this. Tear off. Okay, I'm going to reopen Maya. So a bug that I get sometimes is my viewport just doesn't update. So I just need to close Maya. Stream can stay open though. Just wait for him to disappear. Yeah, it's kind of like a soft lock that I get quite often. Task manager. Is Maya dying or is it not? Okay, he's going to kill it. And task. There we go. Okay, it's back open. Another thing about the eyebrows that I'm not really looking forward to is he's sculpted asymmetrically. It doesn't look it at the low res, but he is sculpted asymmetrically, so I'm going to have to do the guides for each side independently, and with the method I like to use, that is quite a slow method. Maybe I will just do the standard like amount of guides, but the way I like to do eyebrows is pretty intense. Let's get action open. Update you. Update you. And update you. So I think what will help is if I go in and pull the guides of this groom forward just a little bit, just to interact with this front groom, that might help in that hollow feeling. Like it's the hacky way of doing it, but it's a way of doing it. So let's see if it works. And it will be quite a subtle thing. Oh, that's something I want to make sure I don't have actually. Let me just undo this. I'm going to turn off lock length, just so I can pull it forward without risk of breaking the shape. And then pull that down so it feels like it's following. So that might help, just a little bit. Yeah, it looks like it will help. Alright, I'm going to do that to the other side. Or, I'm going to mirror him. There he is. And just delete. In fact, no, I can keep him. That's fine. I'm going to change him slightly though. It's never good to just directly mirror something. I know I've got a lot of mirroring going on in this groom, but that's because I've not got to the stage of breaking stuff up. But I think with stuff like this, where it's so simple just to quickly go in and tweak it, it's not worth leaving it. You may as well just do it on the spot. There we go. That will help a little bit with the hollow feeling. It will still be there if I just go in now. See if this moment's safe. There we go. And then let's do an IPR just to get a bit of a faster result. So that gap is still pretty visible. If you want to share the clump curve with the main groom, will that reduce the gap? It would, I think. I'm not entirely sure how you do that in XGen, to be honest. I know how you do it in Fidelity, NPC's tool. Saying that isn't NDA, luckily, because NPC's announced its tool. But I'm not entirely sure how you do that setup in XGen. I'm thinking of just kind of bodging it together by pulling the grooms physically closer together. And also this still feels too messy. It doesn't feel messy enough in here as well. But yeah, so sharing clump curves would help a bit if I could mask them. But I'd rather just go with the method I know for now, which is, I know, the lazy way out, but we'll see how it goes. I don't want OBS, what am I doing? There we go. So let's go into Maya. Oh. Perfect. First crash of the day. Oh, it was still trying to do an IPR. I suppose I made it so far without a crash, to be honest. I'm also glad I saved when I did. Let's hope that emergency save. I'm not going to load that, I'm just going to go to the one that I just created. Alright, let's get extra going. Right. I'm not going to comment on how I think Fertility is. I don't really want to draw many comparisons. It is a great tool, but I'm not going to go deeper than that. Just because publicly I don't know what can and can't be said. What I can say, and what I'll get on the screen, NPC. Everything I can say is on this page. If you search NPC R&D Fertility, everything that's on this page is stuff I'd be able to say. You know, what it was used on, it's used for, it's really rated digitables. Its main strength though is clearly creatures. But I can't really go deeper than that. There is a really good dynamic grooming of the Wolfman. This is like, I think 2010 this was released, yeah. But this gives pretty much the most detailed breakdown of fertility you can get online. So if you want to read up on it, there's like a video that came with this. There we go, fertility dynamic grooming for Wolfman Seagraph. That's probably the best thing out there. But yeah, I really don't want to go deeper than that. There is information though, all of which was 0 ratings apparently. But yeah, so that would be worth looking into. Although I'm curious as to what's out there actually. Yeah, so that's how it looks. It's a very powerful tool. I do like it a lot. but I'm going to leave it at that. Right, so I guess something I would normally be able to do that would help this is if I was to get guides from this and duplicate them and put them in, but I'm using guide clumping and my utilities is broken for some reason, so I'm not able to convert anything. Yeah, NDAs, they're strong, man, and if there's a time not to challenge your NDA, it's during a global pandemic which is causing job losses in many studios. So I'm not going to push luck with NDAs. It's a bad time for everyone, so I'd rather not try. Something I'm going to do while I'm at this, actually. Let's drag him over again. Something really small that's bothering me quite a lot is the fact these are all going at the same angle. So I'm just going to, with this turned off, because I don't want to change the shape, I'm happy with the overall shape, I'm just going to add some variation. It's super subtle, but it will do something. Even if it just makes it feel wavier. Like, I don't really care, to be honest. So, get you... That helps. Even just doing that with like 2 guides is enough for it to feel better. Maybe I can pull one flatter as well. There we go. It's weird how the subtle stuff can do quite a lot. Like, that feels more natural, even though it's like such a simple little thing. But yeah, let's get back to this, because this is really racking my brain right now. So let's go into overhead from clumps. So this side I'm going to ignore. And the sculpt I need to check out. So let's go back to the sculpt. So the sculpt has this, which is going to cause a big difference. Yeah, so that's the problem, is that I don't have this shelf in the sculpt. It's actually quite smooth. So that means I need to pull this guy way up. Like, way up. Do something like that, even. That means this guy can come up. Actually, that feels a lot better just from guide work. That will help. Let's pull that way a little bit. Okay, I'm going to delete the guides on this side. Move these over. Regenerate all my clumps, because that's not going to work anymore. Guide. Actually, maybe that would work, I don't know. And then regenerate these. That looks like it would be a lot better. It's still going to not be perfect, but it looks like it'll work. Right, let's just see if that is enough to fix it. So I'll get you something like this. Oh, save. Render, one day, render man. Valid parameter. Redshift. I can't read it quick enough. I've got a feeling some of the objects have some redshift history on them, which isn't great. That's only going to cause issues later. think something that'd be quite fun to do. I don't have anything to paint over my screen. In fact, actually, can you paint in the snippet tool? I think something that'd be quite fun to do is if I get... can I draw over this now? I can. I can't undo that. Beautiful. So if I was to make one eye bigger than... Wow. This is awful. If I make one eye like way bigger than the other, and I make like the pupils tiny, that'd be quite fun, I think. One touching top of the eye, one not. It could be kind of interesting. It'd make him look a bit more crazy. That helps a lot. There's still a gap that needs to be fixed, but that definitely fixes a lot of the issues. So it was just height. This is still wrong, but we can get to that. Out of interest, I'm gonna see how different does this look. So if I hide this and show the sculpt, does it feel similar? Also, you really want to get these shapes in. They'll help a lot. So it needs to be longer. It needs to feel more solid. I think I've not been brave enough with the length and the cutoff. So far, we're about 4.5, 5 hours into the groom, including general setup, and obviously this is talking. I am working a lot slower than I would professionally, but then, as everyone knows, like whenever you're talking to people and working directly in front of people, it's going to be a little bit harder. But for about half a day's work, he's looking okay. He's not perfect by any means. He's way off concept. We're missing this nice wave that it's got. This feels too empty in mine. Way too empty, so that needs to be cranked. I think the density just needs to be cranked. We've obviously gained volume, but that was kind of forced, to be honest. And missing that bit back there is probably a good thing. So I don't really actually like that looking at it. But this needs to feel more abrupt. Obviously, it's super extreme on the, there's literally no hair sculpted for this. But yeah, it's way off at the moment. So let's work on what's best to work on first? Oh, what's that? Yeah, let's get this area, I guess, is the next thing. So, hide. Oh, let's not hide you actually. So what is the hair doing? What I will do to you is put you in the template layer. Question. Oh. Yeah, he's way off. He's not even touching the scalp. Okay, so we really need to fill out that area. I think that comes down to this guide quite a lot. So let's pull him in. Oh, I need to undo that. I'll start using lock length again, because now I'm working with the actual hair again. I want it to be maintaining its shape. Well, not maintaining its shape, sorry, maintaining its length, so it would simulate a little bit better. And then I'm going to hide the groom itself. I guess this will help the empty feeling as well. And that really needs to pull in quite a lot. See, I could just pull the hairline forward. because the way he's sculpted is technically not impossible, because you can always force shapes, but like this here, where the hair comes all the way to the front and is solid, you wouldn't really get that unless the hair here is literally just flopping down immediately and kind of flowing backwards, which maybe that's what it's doing. Let's try adding a guide right here, and then not 0.001, and then 0.8. Cool. I don't need to scale him actually. Looks like it's done a good job. So this needs to be really strict. And then let's wrap that up. So I'm intentionally crossing these over here a bit. I want it to feel like the hair's like wrapping in. And then I'm going to try to bring this up just a little bit. That might help. Let's try previewing the hair. Okay, so we're missing density as well. We're using basically, so here we've got the correct density of hair technically, but the problem we got is the guides are in quite a small area, so the amount of strands that can fill this area is not enough, so it feels hollow. We can kind of hack that by forcing hair further forward, which is probably what I'll do. You could also just artificially crank the density. I prefer not to do that. Like wherever I can, because if you artificially crank in the density, the light response is going to be a bit weird. In that the light is expecting, or you would be expecting like visibly more light to get through the hair. So I'm going to pull him forward. That will help a little bit, because now we're going to get more hairs further back, like pulled. It's pretty subtle, but it might be enough. Back into XGen. Hi guys, XGen to mesh. What do you mean? Do you mean like sculpting on, not sculpting, matching the mesh with XGen? As in like putting the XGen on the sculpted mesh? This needs to be way more solid. The front I'm going to have to fake. I've kind of forced myself into that. Let's try turning off and not cut clump 2. Yeah, I'm going to have to force the density way higher. Let's try 50% more. And then clumping. So this clumping is going to break it up a bit. So I'm going to need to do... Let's do stray. And it says strays to not clump. I need way more strays for that to work. Okay. Shouldn't really be doing that anyway. Okay, how about we pump up the volume? That kind of feels nice. Doesn't feel right, but it feels nice in its own way. Oh, I need to go into my viewport settings. Anti-aliasing, increase the samples. We get slightly more anti-aliasing samples now. I saw it decimate. I'm not converting XGen to a mesh now. The decimated mesh is a sculpt that I made. So I sculpted this in, maybe I should show you in here. So I sculpted this in ZBrush, just as like a target to aim for. I'm a much more confident sculptor than I am, I'd much rather do this than lay out cards as reference. And I don't have any like reference lined up to this to match, so I just figured, oh well, I'll sculpt it in. And ultimately, this wasn't meant to be a full project. Like, let me find the image. Originally, this was just meant to be a one-off sculpt. I'm just waiting for my internet to load so I can get the image over. Come on. Apparently I can't. Oh, there we go. So this started purely as a ZBrush sculpt. It wasn't meant to go further than that, but I ended up feeling inspired to work the next day, and I didn't want to do any sculpting, so I just decided, oh, I'll do some grooming, and that's why I've started doing these live streams, kind of riding that that willingness to work, and finding live streams actually kind of helping me a bit because I enjoy teaching quite a lot, and I guess it's interesting to see, like, you know, when I post this stuff, people will see this and be like, oh, we have no idea how you made it, or you know, you have no idea how long it took. So maybe it's kind of interesting to see, like, when I'm making this stuff, I really, like, most of the time, as do most artists, we kind of stumble our way through it. We don't necessarily have a plan for absolutely everything. Can I ask one thing? Yeah, sure. What do you want to ask? Also, if you want to ask questions, just ask them. There's a pretty big chat delay, so it's easier just ask the question. I'm more than happy to answer most, and if I can't, I'll just say that I can't answer. If there's a reason for me not to be able to, like the NDA questions over here. When Arnold used TX in preferences, I must put read in raw. When it converts to TX, it should. I think it should automatically compensate that, but it might be gamma correction that you're talking about, in which case setting it to raw might help. I prefer generally to just gamma correct it. If you set the gamma on a texture to 0.454, that will take it from sRGB to linear, which is the way I prefer to do it. I prefer to see the gamma correction in the node graph. In the case of RenderMan, there's a linearize button in the pixel texture node. I just use that because it's a button, it's a checkbox. But yeah, I think converting it to TX doesn't directly affect the color space. I think I might be wrong. I might be entirely wrong, to be honest. But yeah, I hope that helped. I mean, I don't really use Arnold, so I don't know the ins and outs. I don't know really how any of it works. So yeah, I don't really know how it works. Basically, the takeaway of that. So let's get back to this guy. Oh, I got some more viewers. I've got 6 people now. That's kind of cool. Hello, whoever's joined. Hope you are having a good day, I guess. I'm gonna reduce the noise on the main hair. Just a little bit. And then I'm going to increase the clumping just a little bit as well. That's feeling a bit better. So let's render that, see if that helps. I'm learning a lot, thanks. Oh, no problem, man. I'm glad you're enjoying it or learning from it. If there's anything that would help, just let me know. I'm more than happy to kind of, you know, divert onto other stuff. Obviously, I am streaming just working. I'm not treating these as tutorials. I am just kind of working and explaining what I do as I go. It's kind of hard to structure a tutorial for hours on end. It's not something I'm particularly interested in doing, to be honest, as well. But if you do want me to quickly talk about something else, I'm happy to do that. Yeah, we're getting more people now, slowly. A whole 6.
Wow, I'm not one of them.
You're not one of them.
I'm not one of them.
And Jesus isn't either.
And he's, yeah. Oh, he's looking cool.
Yeah, he's getting there. We got, like, that's kind of with the hair. So yeah. I'm kind of trying to figure out now, like, oh, well, this volume here is, like, that's the previous render. Yeah. So it's like, okay, just finding now. The silhouette had to change because the head is too large at the back. Yeah. But yeah, I think like this shape. Sorry, I'll move the mouse just so people on the screen can see. So like this little S or like that kind of curve, I really like that. I don't like that.
Yeah, you want the bum back.
so I'm just re-rendering. So this one is filled in this area, which helps a lot. One of the next things I need to do is really mess up the roots, because the roots are super smooth.
Yeah.
And it feels very artificial.
Go back to your model. Sorry guys, I've brushed my teeth. Although these don't look natural, I really like these.
Yeah, I'm going to be adding those as separate grooming.
That's okay.
The stray grooms. Yeah, they're not even remotely natural.
It's like Cindy Lou Who did it from the Grinch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like little fly ones. Sorry, I'm gonna spit this big one.
Yeah, I'm sure no one can understand a thing of what you're saying.
Blah, blah, blah. I need to dry my hair, but I did it in the kitchen. Apologise to your people, okay?
Oh, that's fine.
They'll be in the kitchen.
As long as you're in the kitchen, it shouldn't be too loud.
Just tell everyone I'm sorry.
If you can't hear her, my girlfriend says she's sorry, but she needs to dry her hair. She's a monster, I know. Right, so got that sorted. So I need to mirror that to the other side now. This is kind of it's not perfect, but it's working. So we'll get it mirrored over, and I'm going to very slowly kind of work my way through. Sorry, 1 second. I was getting myself a bit confused. Delete these guys all the way down to him. And then grab all those. That's about right. Move them over. And I'll break up the mirroring in a second. There we go. That's better. If you're using grayscale math inputs like roughness, mellowness, you set input to raw. When you're using color inputs like diffuse, color, emission, you go for sRGB. Yep, that sounds about right, to be honest. Basically, if anything is set as like data, so like you're trying to set like specific values for stuff, then yeah, I guess raw makes sense. Although, if anyone's able to explain, because I'm not 100% clear on what the difference is, so setting to raw and linearizing, is there technically a difference between those? That's not something I'm 100% clean on.
You see my phone?
No, I haven't seen your phone. Do you mind closing the door for a little bit?
No.
No, I refuse. So something I'm going to do now, because I'm not too keen on how it looks. So this parting is obviously like perfectly clean, and I'm not 100% keen on that. It doesn't feel right, and it kind of makes the front feel kind of iffy. So something you can do for that is in your region map, which is down here. I'm just going to go in and, oh god, giant brush. Right, what's it set to? What do you say?
Am I okay to sit in the balcony?
You can, oh, you got to chat to someone? Yeah, you can chat in here.
Yeah, I'll block your thingy.
I don't get this. It's only a live stream.
Hang on.
Okay. But yeah, something that's quite helpful to do is if you do like this sort of stuff to your region map, just like get some zigzag in there. That will tend to help quite a lot. Be careful that you don't accidentally reach the other guides, because if you do that, it's going to stop working really as a region map. So make sure you're always oh, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm a bit lost at the moment. Yeah, make sure you're always like clearing the two sides. So you can just like do something like that, and all that's going to do is mean that like the parting isn't perfectly smooth, which might be enough to break it up a little bit. You can also have some little dots, I guess, but it will look a bit odd. You'll get crossover, but it might be interesting, maybe. Who knows? And you can always go back on it. It's an easy enough thing to adjust. But this is just adding noise really to how that parting is happening, which I guess in real life, unless you're fresh from the barbers, you're not going to have a perfectly clean parting. Let's save that guy and see what difference that made. Ooh. Okay, so modifiers. Set maps. Generate. Save. and set of maps, generate, save. There we go. So you see how that kind of, yeah, it breaks it up a bit. We're having some crossover. That really will help quite a lot. Makes it feel a bit more, not real. And it's quite low resolution. These are really, really quite squarish, but it looks better than a perfectly clean pattern because you can no longer just see straight up the middle. But yeah, so I'm really tempted to make this hair much shorter, and I might remake it with removable splines. I might maybe do that before my next stream. I might just quickly test groomable splines because it's been a really long time since I used them. I haven't used groomable splines since I think my 2014. Now it's 2020, end of the world, so a lot's changed. So we'll see how it is. But are there any questions on the general setup of this guy? I mean, I'm gonna keep streaming for a little bit longer, but if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to go through them. So I'm just getting a link. Right. So I'm gonna do the same thing to this front clump. If I actually, yeah, I am. Okay. So front clumps. Go to the region map. Okay, break this up quite a bit. So got red. Let's paint it into the red a bit. I'm just gonna do this. I should show the guide, so I'm doing that. Yeah. So you want to avoid doing that. I will go and repaint this in a second. Just to get this away. Well, for next approach renders, GPU. If I must buy PC, but CPU for a good GPU. In my approach was good GPU. I personally prefer a good CPU. Just because generally speaking, you're going to have more CPU intensive work than you are GPU intensive work, unless obviously you're using something like Redshift. But I use RenderMan, which is obviously like you can do GPU, but it's primarily CPU based. So I don't really do anything. I think it's a bit too low resolution. I have to upres it at some point. If I try making a shader, I guess it would be good to finally make a shader. Okay, I haven't done this in here for a while, so let's see if there's RenderMan attributes anywhere. RenderMan shading. Yes, it's not like a, okay. So what I'm going to do is going to no browser, going to edit, delete unused nodes. I'm going to rename this guy to hair preview. I'm going to create a Marshner shader, PXR Marshner, and then I'll just keep him named that way, and then assign this. So the preview in viewport isn't ideal, which is why I tend not to go to shading too early. Obviously I can just keep swapping shaders, but it's a bit slow to keep doing that. But let's see how default settings work. So let's preview render that. This is default settings. It's going to be grey. Does anyone want me to explain how hair shading tends to work? Like the general kind of fundamentals behind it? If so, put a little message in the chat. If not, I won't bother. It's pretty much all hair shaders work in a pretty similar way. We can already see a difference in the tips and how much darker they are. And how much lighter they feel as well, in terms of like how thin the hair feels now. Let this guy render for a little bit. Probably should have done a IPR to begin with, but then I'm having crashes with IPR at the moment, so maybe it's not worth doing that. Obviously the camera's moved a little bit, but see how much like more slick that feels? Like hair shading really changes the groom quite a lot. In fact, it's making me realise I'm going to have to increase the width again. Feels super smooth though. Yeah, this is one of the reasons I hold off from shading as long as I can, because if you have a good looking groom with this, then it will be a lot smoother feeling with the actual shader, and it'll feel good in both. You tend to lose a lot of these like really dark areas, so it flattens everything out a bit, like this spot especially. But yeah, I think I actually kind of prefer how it looks with this, so I have to keep switching back and forth. Would be nice. I can see if I can translate the theory to Arnold. The theory should translate to all. The theory of hi Travis. The theory of how hair shading works should translate to every renderer pretty directly. Because when I say theory, I mean like literally the most basic level of theory. So let me just get the snipping tool. And it might cut out for a second here, I don't know. So hair shading basically is hair is a glass tube, really. Like strictly speaking, this is a hair. This is a hair as well. And I'm not going to get too in depth because there's a lot of topics in hair shading, and hair shaders are rough approximations at best right now. But the general way they work, well, the actual structure of a hair, so I'm going to draw a hair over here. So this is a hair, zoomed in, super close. This isn't two hairs, this is one super zoomed in hair, right? I'm just going to erase those two lines. Hate the snipping tool drawing. But yes, so hey, what are you doing? I'm grooming and I'm explaining how hair shading works right now, but I'll be getting back to grooming in a sec. But yeah, so hair is made of cones. That's the first thing. And so, you know, you've got all these cones on the surface made of keratin, but they're kind of refractive. So I don't know exactly like the exact like atomic structure or whatever, and frankly it's kind of irrelevant. But you've got the cones on the outside, and then you've got a tube on the inside. I think it's called the medulla or the medulla, and that is like the densest part of the hair. So it's like a core basically. I think it's the densest anyway. I might be wrong on that. Maybe it's the thinnest. But most hair shaders will kind of automatically take that into account for you. But the way light interacts with hair, there's fundamentally three light interactions. You've got reflection, which is just where light hits the surface like this and bounces straight off. The cones affect this quite a lot. So in most hair shaders, you'll see something called specular shift or reflection shift or offset or something like that. And basically what that's doing is if the hair was flat and this light hits it at 45 degrees, it'll bounce off at 45 degrees. So the delta would be 90. But that's not how hair reacts, because hair is little flakes, right? So when it bounces off, it's going to bounce off at a different angle. So that specular shift or reflection shift or offset, whatever it's called, is the angle of these cones. So when you increase the shift, you're increasing the angle of this. I think it's in degrees for most renderers, and the default is between 5 and 15, because that's generally an acceptable range for the angled hairs, because they are super tightly packed. They're not like this, the way I'm drawing it. The cones are super tightly packed, but yeah, so shift is moving this. So that's reflection, and reflection is never colored. It is always black and white or monochrome. And that's because the color of the hair comes from how much light is absorbed traveling through. So the second type of interaction is transmission, and transmission is hits the surface, goes through, bounces at a certain angle, hits the other side and comes out. This has gone through the hair for X length, right? And so a certain amount of light has been absorbed, so this will be like a very light blonde, basically. So this is when you put light behind someone's head and it glows, this is what's happening. The third type of interaction is called transmission, reflection, transmission. And so what happens there is it hits the surface, it transmits, hits the inner surface, it reflects, hits the outer surface, and it transmits. And obviously you can get like transmit, reflect, 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 transmit, but ultimately this is your hair color fundamentally. So what's happening here is it goes through the hair, X length, and it travels back, X length. So twice the amount of, I don't know if it's perfectly mathematically twice the amount, because obviously you've got like structures within this, but this is X times 2 fundamentally. So it's we can just call it X squared for now. So the amount of light that's been absorbed is way more. So this will be a darker color. So this is like 0.2 blonde, and this is 0.4. So this is going to be darker. So that's why when you shine the light behind someone's hair, it glows a lighter shade of their own hair, roughly twice as bright. This is all incredibly approximated, by the way. There's a lot more depth to this. I've not researched it that much. I did look into quite a lot of look dev a while ago, but fundamentally this is how it works. So you've got 3 different things happening with the hair. You've got reflection, which is black and white. You've got your transmission, which should be roughly twice as bright as your hair color, which is the secondary reflection, that's sometimes called. Although hair color is normally this. This is what you're seeing most of the time. That's why hair tends to flatten quite a lot. If you have diffuse, hair light's not getting through, so it favors this a lot more. It doesn't feel real. Hair doesn't really have a diffuse component. There is obviously some level of diffuse in there somewhere, but it's such a small amount that, strictly speaking, it's irrelevant, which is why most hair shaders have a default diffuse of 0. This is set to grey, but the diffuse gain is 0, so it's functionally no diffuse. We can add that, and it will feel like the hair is dyed in some way, or there's some mud in it, or whatever, but that's what's happening. So, oh, you alright?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see what?
Yeah, I was just explaining hair look dev, how shaders work.
Cool.
But yeah, so if I want to set a hair color, the one that I want to change is this. So I'm going to go with like a dark green, like really dark. And then for this transmit, I'm going to pick the same color and then brighten it. So this is 0.9. I'm going to go with around 0.8 or 0.18, sorry. And then I'm going to render this and save it first as well. Render, preview render. Obviously these colors are just picked kind of out of the air and they're not real colors. You can get like a graph of every possible hair color from a paper that Weta made a couple of years ago. You can sit in here if you want, if it's cold outside.
What?
You can sit in here if it's
No,
cold
it's
outside.
fine.
Okay. I probably won't stay on the stream too much longer just because my girlfriend's kind of making herself sit outside because she doesn't want to be loud. And I feel bad, even though she's choosing to do it. I told her she didn't have to, but still. But yeah, so that's hair shading. Are there any questions really about how that hair shading tends to work, or is that interesting? Is it? Do you think it's bullshit? Like, it's what I hear what people think really. I need to check my specular component. Not the gain. Yeah, this is about right. But yeah, so primary cone angle. That's the sorry, specular offset. Sorry, that's the degrees in which it's rotated. So -3 is -3 degrees. I think it's in degrees. It might say if I hover over it. Yeah, in degrees. So if I set this to 180, the hair is technically inverted and it wouldn't work. But this cone angle is basically just like the probability of, it's basically a glossiness. If you set this to a lower number, it will be glossier, which means it's going to be sharper and you'll get darker darks, brighter highlights. If you set this really high, it will feel diffuse or like subsurface. That should be the same for most shaders, to be honest. And refractive index, the default is pretty accurate. It's keratin, so 1.55 is a pretty decent number. But yeah, so there we go. And you see how having that transmit roughly twice as bright, it feels, obviously this is like cartoonish and I have overdone it, and it's not a real color, but that transmit being twice as bright feels right, or approximately right. Obviously the lighting has a big bit to play as well because I've got lights directly over his head. But yeah, that's kind of like the fundamentals to it, the basics of how it works. I'm going to check how this looks from the back. I'm also going to change the short groom width. That is what I want. Okay, so I'm just going to reduce that. I'm going to save a increment as well because I haven't saved an increment in a while. Cool. So render and preview render. I'll leave this going for a second. Also, task manager, if anyone's thinking of getting a free 950X, because I know, Francisco, you are. Let's give this a second. There you go. There's some information for you. We can see how it goes, how it handles everything. And I'm also running a GPU, which for some reason is active right now. My GPU activity's flown up. Not entirely sure why. And that's a 2070 Super. It's a pretty cheap card. Like I will be upgrading it at some point. Memory. So I'm taking up 13 gig of memory. So that's actually a lot more than I expected. But then I think a surprising amount of that is Windows, because Windows loves to eat your memory if you have extra. But yeah. With the correct shader, I think this is starting to look alright. Starting is the keyword. There's still a lot of work to do. You have any questions while this is going? You don't need that many cores. And that's the thing, for most people they really don't need that many cores, but like a lot of CG is very, very multi-threaded. Like obviously you got apps like ZBrush which really aren't. Like if you have loads and loads of cores, it's not really that beneficial. But what was I going to say? Yeah, if you have loads and loads of cores, it's not really that beneficial for most people, and most reviewers aren't CG artists. I think there's a YouTube channel, I've forgotten the name of. I mean, I think Blender Guru did a few reviews of tech once, or it was someone else like that. But yeah, I've had a few people say, "Oh, you don't need a powerful computer." It's like, well, you're technically right. You don't need a powerful computer. No one needs a free 950X. I mean, up until literally November, I've been doing this now for 8 years. and up until literally 4 or 5 months ago, I was using a laptop which I've had for 6 years, which had a quad core, which is still more than you need. Like you can do CG on a dual core. Like it would be horrible and really slow, and you'd have to do way more iterations to get anything working, but it would work. Yeah, there we go. There's some basic hair shading. I think it's relatively successful. I think like these so the things that we need to fix, just so people can kind of look at this and see it through the lens I'm looking through. One is this still feels featureless. It feels too dense as well, which it is actually, even though the density is set lower. So something's technically wrong with this groom, but it feels very featureless. There's no strays. There's nothing crossing. It's all like you can see it all going the same direction, and that is fine. But normally you'd expect some kind of crossover, some kind of subtle flow variation. Nothing too strong, but it has to be there. Other than that, you got this flat shape here, which feels really strange. Like it's almost like ghosting through this guy as well, so there's a bit of intersection going on. I do like the glints; they're kind of cool. But that's just Martian shader. That's not anything I've done. But yeah, like the back of the hair, it would be nice to get again more flow variation because at the moment it feels very straight, kind of boring. The strays are just kind of lifting out. I think the amount of strays and the strength of them is good, but they kind of need some kind of coil to like kind of bend them around. Thick mode or ribbon mode? Which one is used when working in production? Thick hair is very rarely used in production. It's incredibly inefficient. It's technically more accurate, and we do use it sometimes. But I think in the 2.5 years I was in the MC Groom department, I don't remember using it more than twice. And those 2 times were eyelashes, because eyelashes, sometimes you see up close. But most groom tools, you stay with ribbon, just because it's far more memory efficient, and frankly you wouldn't be able to tell because the ribbons are camera facing. So if they've got like bent normals, which most hair shaders will do for you, they feel the same as tubes, or they look the same as tubes. I mean, this is a pretty close-up shot. You'd very rarely get a shot like this for a digidouble, at least one that's not out of focus and or at least one that's in focus. And most of the time they'll be out of focus and motion blurred in the background. But yeah, so thick is very rarely used. Ribbon is definitely king. But yeah, so in terms of the other feedback though, so this is feeling, the silhouette is boring at the moment. It'd be nice to get strays that are kind of curling, doing nice little shapes. Like if I go to my sculpt, so having some strays that are doing like this kind of stuff. Obviously not this obviously. Obviously not this strong. You wouldn't want them showing up like that. But just some kind of curl that is away from the head. It needs some large clump flicks, I think, because at the moment each clump, like you got this one which looks kind of interesting, but it's too chaotic, it's too strong. But the rest of the clumps, they're all like let's pick this clump here. It's just going straight line. This clump, straight line. This clump, subtle bend. That one's okay. This clump, straight line, little bit of a kink. That's fine. But pretty much all of them are just straight, and it's really boring to look at. You might find a reference like this, and your hair might be like that, and it's perfectly fine. But for this character, is this smooth? It is. But for this character, I want it to be a bit crazy, because he's not realistic. His shapes are pushed. And in terms of feedback from the front, what I'd say for this is this feels a bit too chaotic here. This feels like we're missing quite a lot of form. It would be nice if we had like a different flow. So if you could see like hair flowing forward for a bit and then back, and then there's kind of like a change in direction, that would feel quite nice. Again, strays. This chaotic, that's fine. This groom feels really boring, because there's really nothing going on with it at the moment, so I need to add a lot more in. Also, we need eyebrows as well. We need some peach fuzz, primarily for the ears. I think I probably won't do full peach fuzz. I'll probably do it ears, a little bit on the jawline. I'll probably ignore most of the face. I'll maybe do some around the eyebrows to blend in, because blending eyebrows into the head with peach fuzz can feel quite nice. And this short groom is just horrible. That needs a lot of work. maybe some clothing fuzz, like thick occasional strands. Nothing. I don't want to do like a fuzz. I want to do like, at the seam lines, maybe like one or two like really quite chunky, scraggly hairs. Dragon I need to resculpt, but I don't think I will, to be honest, because this groom is purely, just to kind of mess about with in live stream, just to kind of get back into the habit. But yes, so let's go back into Maya. So this is where the whole problem of using rendered materials is now I need to switch back to different material. So let's go into this, select all our guides, and I'm going to, there is hair preview. I'm going to set this guy to be a bit more green. Preview, hair preview matte. So let's just slide the hue a little bit. And then get you. Slide the hue. And it needs to be darker. And then let's change the specular. Power is the strength, right? Oh no, it is the glossiness. And there's that specular shift I talked about. All it's doing is moving. Functionally, it's just moving the highlight along the hair, but the way it's doing it, technically, when you're path tracing it, is changing the angle of those cones I was mentioning. 5 to 10 is a good, like, realistic number. If you set it to 0, it will still mostly feel the same, but the reflections won't feel quite right. Nothing will ever feel exactly the way it is. It's such a subtle effect. But when you see lights moving around the hair, it actually does become quite obvious. If you've got animated lights, it is something that starts to show up quite a bit more. Yeah, we're getting there though. It's slowly starting to look somewhat presentable. This side groom is not even close to matching the original painted texture I did. This is fine, but I think we need to go in and adjust this now. So, and I think on the next stream I'll leave these as they are. I'll go in and do the eyebrows. But yeah, let's just go in. Sculpt and hide the render geo. So XGen. Mask. Oh, that's not what I want to do. Okay. Let's just. I'm gonna do opacity on this, just because I want it to fade in a bit more. I want there to be some hairs here or there. And this is a really boring shape. Obviously my guides will need to be adjusted now because I'm going to be missing this kind of back sweep thing, and I quite like having that. I need to break up the edge as well. That's fine. Okay, save textures. That doesn't look right. That feels a bit better. Just fades in nicer now. Ah. Let's get the. So. This shape doesn't feel natural at all. I think that needs to change next as well. We need a little bit less separation between them because that's like a 60-degree angle. So it's a bit too strong. pretty happy with how this top section is working. We do need to add the strays that kind of come up and flick. In fact, let's just see. I'm not expecting this to work at all, but let's just see if we can get the strays to curl like randomly. I'm gonna see if we can use a coil modifier. I could technically just increase the frequency and the noise, which actually I'll test that first. So that's the stray one. Frequency, let's set that to 6 and see if that. Nah, it has to be around 3.5. So let's add a coil. I don't know if this will work, to be honest. I'm just gonna see. It's beautiful. I'm done. Actually, it looks like candy floss. It's kind of cool. But it's obviously not what we want. So stray. So that's just coiling the strays now. The radius needs to go way down. The count scale. So I'm kind of blind as to how this is working at the moment. You guys have just got to the giant inflation, right? So we got count up. Right. I'm going to abandon the coil because I don't know how that works right now. I'm going to try doing it over second noise. So let's go with add a noise modifier. Stray. Then shift that all the way to the end. So that will start to do it. Frequency 5. Magnitude needs to go way down. Let's go rand. Oh no, not rand 0 to 0.2. There we go. That's just going to curl like the tips of some hairs. It might curl more in than out. I need to make it stronger as well. There we go. So that will get us, let me just hide the light group in the background. And set the background to black. So that last noise, all that's going to do is just kink the tip of the hair. And let me just set this to update preview automatically. So it's just like, yeah, it's not going to do it to every hair because it's randomized. In production, I saw an example of UV head and the UV seam in the middle of the face. Isn't it important to hide seams in production? Yes and no. It depends on the pipeline you're using. If your pipeline is just ZBrush, Mari, those sorts of programs, it's really not an issue. If you're planning on doing 2D texture projection, so if you're adding like fractals and stuff, it does become an issue. Generally speaking, we make pretty heavy use of UDIMs. The amount depends per character. It can be pretty stupid numbers. I'm not going to mention how high the numbers go. But yeah, like having a lot of UDIMs kind of requires the use of UV seams in places you wouldn't expect. Like directly through the middle of the face, for example, but it's unavoidable. But if you're using Mari, because of the edge padding that it does, and I think Substance is the same as well now. ZBrush doesn't do it, but you tend to get away with it. You don't see the UV seams, like they're just not visible. So I'm just gonna update that groom. But yeah, this is too chaotic though. But yeah, so what was I saying? That helps. Oh, I've completely lost my mind. what was it saying? Oh yeah, UV seams. You don't need to hide them really. If you're texturing in 2D, like Photoshop texturing, old techniques, or um, if you're using anything that's 2D, basically, if you're using 2D noises, 2D fractals, it matters. It matters a lot. I'm just gonna make this ramp a bit prettier. There we go. Alright. One of the things that's wrong with this side is the hair's sticking out too much. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Thanks. No problem, man. Yeah, so let's go to the short hair. So something that will help quite a lot is if I flatten these guides to the head a little bit. They're going to stick out less, obviously, that's kind of the point. But yeah, that might help with how sticky it feels and how strong everything seems to feel. It's going to be a super subtle effect. I should probably turn off the resolution gate. Get a bit more screen space. Yeah, that helps a little bit. Not much, but it does something. I'm going to increase the frequency of the noise on the long hair. Where is it? There it is. I'm just going to boost it up so it can go higher, not so it always goes higher. That feels a little bit nicer. Right, in terms of guides, so we need to get some more chaos in this now. So let's, as a test, just completely break some guides. So I'm going to flick it out, I'm going to kink it completely the wrong way, and let's just see how that looks. So even doing that is enough to do something to make it feel more interesting. I do need to break the symmetry completely. Is there a way we can check the total amount of hairs and clumps on the photo description? Total amount of hairs, I know for sure you can. The way that you do that, I'll talk about braids in a sec, Francisco. But yeah, remember, the way that you check the number of hairs is if you go to log, statistics level, and turn that to 1. Whenever you generate your groom, it will show a log down here, which will say it took 0.469 seconds to generate 62,122 primitives. That's the number of hairs in this groom. For clumps, you might be able to do it. For clumps, you can do it as well. If you go to your clump system, hit preview guides, it will say how long it took to generate 1,323 primitives. So that's my clump system for the top of the head. Obviously it continues further down because I've not masked it. But yeah, that's how you do that. In terms of braids, let me just read your question, Francisco. What about braids? I see a couple of artists doing a thing where they helix the guides, which I think is not correct since braids are more of a knit. Yeah, I mean, braids are a nightmare, man. There's a few ways of doing it. Mostly some tools like Yeti have a braid tool built in. You've also got, I think someone's making a braid tool for Houdini. You've got Nhair, of all things, has a braid button. And yeah, obviously it's not a knot pattern. But I, all of those methods are very intensive on the number of CVs you need. Like, you're gonna need hundreds of CVs on your hairs to get like a full braid that's like, quite long and able to deform and looks smooth. Especially when you start adding strays, it doesn't really work. So generally, what the best way to do things is actually there's a plugin that guy called Avishek made called Braid Maker. I'll put it up on screen now. One sec. I don't have it, but I know that people use it. Braid Maker. Luckily, I've never had to do braids. Braid Maker. Yeah. So you've got Braid Maker by AKA Tools. That's a pretty decent one. I don't know if that one's Avishek's. I think it is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is. Oh look, I'm live. Who knew? So what people do is they make a geometry using a braid plugin like this one, and then what you do is you create your groom on these and make an incredibly short groom that just travels along the length of it. So it's like literally like tiny, tiny little hairs. And then what you can do is strays. Well, you just pull strays out. There's no problem at all. And it tends to be a lot easier to work with. The animators can see exactly what they're gonna get. There's no issue with giving them proxy meshes. It's just easy. It is still heavy. Braids are always going to be heavy, but it's a lot easier to do it that way. It's less accurate, and it might shade weirdly, but ultimately you're not going to notice most of the time. So it's kind of irrelevant. But that's the way. Like, I really can't go into much details about my job and how I've done it in the past, but that's the way I see a lot of people doing it. Has been instances where people use all methods, like where you'll have some braids that need to unfold, so you'll have actual guide work, which is gross. You might do a blend of the two methods. You might have a braid that's mesh until a certain point, and then after that, like, you add groom to the end to like kind of complete the braid, so that it can be woven or can be simulated to undo or whatever it needs to do. There's a lot of different methods, to be honest, and none of them are wrong and none of them are right. It's a case by case basis to which one you need to use. But yeah, I hope that answered your question. I hope that was fine. But yeah, all right. I think I'm going to call the live stream at an end here, because I did an hour and a half and I've just done 2.5 hours. So we're at 3 hours now. No, sorry, 4 hours now. So I'm going to call it here. I'll hold on until 8:20. So that gives you guys 5 minutes to ask any questions. And then I'll do another live stream maybe tomorrow, maybe on Sunday, I don't know. But yeah, so I'm just going to leave this on the screen while you guys type if you got anything you want to ask. Save him. Bit bumpy. Need to smooth this out. Becca's having a good time. It's nice to hear. Nope, cheers. Alright, cool. I'm gonna head off, guys. I hope that you're all having a good night, and I hope this has been helpful for some of you. But yeah, have a great night, guys. Bye.